Marking and cutting of fabric for shorts. Marking and cutting out the precise fabric pieces are of vital importance before you actually start sewing. At the end of the session, you will be able to measure and mark fabric for making shorts, cut the fabric for shorts. Let's first familiarize with the tools and materials required for measuring, marking, and cutting the fabric for shorts. They are measuring tape, tailor's chalk, shears, 34 inches or 95 centimeters of fabric, half inch elastic, pattern square, and iron. Now let's see how to fold the fabric before drafting. Before you start drafting, it is very essential to check if the fabric we are going to use is crumpled. If so, iron it properly before you fold the fabric for drafting. Also, check if the grain is corrected. Now, let's look at the fabric first and see if we need to consider certain aspects before we can start folding for drafting. Our fabric here gives a direction, so we have to remember when we draft, the top of the design should be to our left and the bottom of the design and the fabric should be to our right. We will draft the front and the back piece separately. From the selvage edge, measure 11.5 inches and make a mark. Holding on to this mark, fold the fabric lengthwise and ensure that the selvage edge is parallel to the fold. At this stage, check if the fabric is folded correctly and the selvage edge and the fold are parallel to each other. Also, check if the double folded cut edge is at a right angle and if not, correct it with the help of pattern square. As mentioned earlier, we will be marking the front piece and back piece separately. First, we will draft the front piece and then based on this, we can draft the back piece. So, let's see how to draft the front piece of the shorts on this folded fabric. As per our drafting instruction, first, let's mark the total length 01, which is 16 inches. Draw a right angle line from the fold with the help of a pattern square. Now from point 1, measure 10 inches in this case. Again, draw a right angle line from the fold with the help of a pattern square. Starting from point 2, measure 11.5 inches and make a mark on the right angled line made earlier. This is point 3. From this point 3, measure 1.5 inches and make a mark as shown here. This is point 4. Now from point 1, measure and mark 8.5 inches. This is point 5. Now join points 4 and 5 in a straight line. From point 5, measure half inch down and make a mark as shown here. Now shape points 1 and 6 slightly as shown here. From point 3, start shaping and join point 6 in a straight line as shown here. From point 0, measure 1 inch and make a mark. This is the seam allowance required for the bottom hem of the shorts. Now from point 8, measure 10 inches and make a mark. This is point 7. Join points 3 and 7 in a soft shape. From point 7, measure 1 inch and make a mark. This is point 9. And mark the midpoint of this line. shape quarter inch outward for the hem seam allowance. This will be point 10. Thus, we have completed the marking of the front piece. At this stage, let's quickly check if the markings made are correct and follow all the quality parameters. Check if the lines drafted are straight, especially the long lines. Check if the lines are drawn in a right angle wherever mentioned. Also, check if the curves drawn are in a smooth flow. Now, we are ready to cut out the front piece. Start cutting from point 9 along the inner leg. Continue cutting at the front crotch seam and then along the front waist. Thus, we have cut out the front piece for the shorts. Now let's see how to mark the back piece of the shorts. For that, again spread the remaining piece of fabric. From the selvage edge of the fabric, measure once the front piece width, which is 11.5 inches in our case, and add 2.5 inches to it to get 14 inches and make a mark. Holding on to this mark, fold the fabric lengthwise and ensure that the selvage edge is parallel to the fold. Check if the double folded cut edge is in a right angle, and if not, correct it with the help of a pattern square and cut out the offset. Now place the front piece over the folded fabric and align the folded and cut edges to the right. Now we can start marking the back piece. As per our drafting instruction, extend the straight line 2 3 and then measure 2.5 inches starting from point 3 and make a mark. This is point 11. Now extend the straight line 8 7 and then measure 2 inches starting from point 7 and make a mark. This is point 12. Join points 11 and 12 in a soft shape. Now extend the straight line 0 9, then measure 2 inches starting from point 9 and make a mark. This is point 13. Join points 12 and 13 with a right angle line and mark the midpoint of this line as point 14. At point 14, shape quarter inch outward for the hem seam allowance. From point 6, measure half inch outward and make a mark. This is point 15. Now from point 15, measure 1.5 inches upwards and make a mark. This is point 16. From point 3, measure and mark half inch along the line to get point 17. Now join the points 16 and 17 in a straight line. Now start shaping from point 11 and join point 16 in a straight line as shown here. Join 116 in a soft curve. Thus, we have completed the drafting of the back piece of the shorts. Now you can remove the front piece. Before cutting the back piece, we need to check if our drafting is correct. Check if all the lines constructed are straight, especially the long lines. Check if the lines and marks have been joined properly. Check if the curves have been drawn in a smooth flow. Now we are ready to cut out the back piece. Start cutting from point 13 along the inner leg. Continue cutting at the back crutch seam. And then along the back waist. While cutting out the drafted pieces, ensure that you cut along the drafted line and carefully cut along the slanted lines or curves. Thus, we have cut out the back piece for the shorts. We still need to also cut along the folds of both the front as well as the back piece. Press the fold again and with one hand hold the two fabric pieces together and cut along the fold. While cutting the folds, ensure that it is cut properly at the folded edge. Thus, we have cut two front pieces and two back pieces. Now with the remaining piece of cloth, let us see how to cut the fabric pieces for the waistband. In the previous session, we calculated the length of the waistband as 34 inches and the width of the waistband as 2.5 inches. Let's have a look at which part of the leftover fabric can be used the best. Let's mark the fabric for the waistband. First, draw a straight line in the direction of the grain next to the cut edges. Mark a starting point and measure the length of the waistband, which is 34 inches, and mark an ending point. Measure 2.5 inches parallel to this line. Now connect these marks with a pattern square. Connect the two lines with a right angle at both ends. Now cut the waistband pieces. Take a 1/2 inch wide elastic band and measure 3 by 4 of the hip circumference, which is 22.5 inches, and cut. Thus, we have cut out all the pieces required for making shorts. Before we conclude, let's take a look at the key steps involved in marking and cutting fabric for the shorts. Step 1. Fold the fabric according to the measurements to mark the front piece. Step 2. Draft the front piece pattern according to the drafting instructions. Step 3. Cut out the front piece. Step 4. Place the folded front piece on top of the remaining piece of fabric and draft the back piece. Step 5. Now remove the front piece and cut along the drafted lines to get the back piece. Step 6. Cut along the folds of the front and the back pieces. Step 7. Cut out the fabric for the waistband as per the required measurement from the remaining piece of cloth. Step 8. Cut out the elastic as per the required measurement. With that, we've come to the end of this session.